Welcome back, everybody, to Well Balanced Vector's podcast. My name is Ezra Firkins. I'm the Communications Director at Vector Wealth. With me today, I have Mike Nesheim. Mike, introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Mike Nesheim. I'm a Senior Wealth Advisor here at Vector. Been here now for 6 years.
So we're going to do kind of a deep dive of financial planning for the surviving spouse. So Mike is going to speak to that, and we'll do some kind of Q&A on that. But before we get into that, let's just do a quick check-in. How are things going with you, Mike?
Yeah, well, with the family, everybody's doing well. I got 2 boys and both played hockey, so hockey season just wrapped up for both of them. My older boy was a senior goalie for Chaska, so he just finished up his high school career. Great news for him, even though the team wasn't great. He set a state record for saves in the season. Wow. So that was an exciting way for him to end his career. And my younger boy had a great season with his team as well. And they won a couple tournaments, also won the district championship this year for the regular season. So it was a great year. And what about your family, Ezra? What's going on with you guys?
Well, yesterday was a big snow day for us, so they canceled school. I've got 2 kids in elementary school. So we shoveled snow and built forts and tunnels in the snow, and it was nice. Good to be outside. The sun was shining, so can't beat it.
No, I mean we get those in this state, so gotta enjoy it while you get the opportunities.
Yeah. Well, let's get into the topic here. So, Mike, the topic again is financial planning for surviving spouses, and just to kind of set this up a little bit, maybe one of the spouses, maybe the man in the relationship or the woman or whatever it may be, somebody's more kind of in tune or has been over the years with keeping finances, keeping investments, maybe paying the bills. Somebody's maybe been in charge of that, has a sense of it, and the other person hasn't been.
Yeah. And
so when we're transitioning into this kind of retirement age, there's potential that someone's going to pass away. Mike, I know you've worked with many clients and come across these kinds of situations. Maybe just speak to something recently that's come up in your conversations.
Yeah. So example would be had a husband and a wife, and husband prior to working with us handled all the financial situation with the family. Wife really wasn't involved and fully kind of trusted the husband to do everything. And when we started working with them, we do recommend that both spouses come in at least initially to understand who we are and what we do at Vector. And part of that process is really getting them on the same page for understanding what's going on in their relationship and their assets, so that if something were to happen to the primary spouse in this case who handles the finances, that the other spouse is comfortable with understanding the next steps. Mm-hmm. So example would be making sure that we have the proper beneficiary set up for them and proper asset distribution strategy set up so that if something were to occur, there's no hiccups to the cash flow needs for the surviving spouse and everything can continue smoothly.
Yeah. Yeah, certainly when that time doesn't happen, it seems like often a stressful time, a time that a lot of decisions have to be made when that one of the spouses passes. I know at Vector we use a bucket-based planning. We're using Sojourn, our proprietary tool. Talk about how that provides a little security or peace of mind during that tough transition.
Yeah, so at Vector we do use a bucket approach and structure the assets into different segments based on time frame needs. We know that if something were to happen in the stock market, or in this case, in someone passing away, we have money set aside outside the stock market in low risk assets readily available for that continued spouse needs and cash flow needs going forward.
Yeah. So if you're in that meeting, how are we talking with them? How are we kind of getting her up to speed on this?
Yeah. So one of the main things we do in almost every meeting with our clients is go through the Sojourn plan and walk through and understand what is going on with their cash needs going forward. So hopefully during those meetings, the spouse that we're talking about, who's maybe not as financially inclined, gets at least a little understanding of, okay, we have assets clearly marked for these needs over the next couple of years. So if something happens, we are going to be just fine.
There's part of me that thinks that some of these sessions that you're having or these discussions may kind of feel like a therapy session if they haven't been unpacked before, they haven't had these conversations. How does that evolve over time?
Yeah. So when we first meet with clients, I tend to have meetings, seems like at least twice a year, if not 4 or 5 times a year early on in the relationships, lots of conversations beyond just regular meetings to walk through what is going on in their overall financial picture and understanding so that they understand what's going on. We at Vector learn more along these quick phone calls on what's going on in their relationships with their finances so that we can really hone in on all the needs and all the planning decisions that need to be made for these clients over the years. And for this particular case, it's a little bit of talking with clients about, okay, you two need to get together, have a little conversation as well, so that you guys can make a decision on what it is that you want to do, relay that to us, so then we can help implement that for them.
Yeah, so there's often some homework, it sounds like.
Yeah, and it's not really homework. It's more just conversations. An example would be recently on long-term care, had discussions on client on just having them have a conversation together on what their real goals and desires are.
So in this kind of first example, we've talked about that it's just a couple, maybe the first time the surviving spouse is having to kind of understand and unpack the finances.
Yeah.
I can imagine another example, and we talked about one before we hit record, where the couple has some kids and they've had those conversations. They're a little bit further along in that discussion process. I guess where I'm going is, how do we plan for that? How do we kind of broaden this out to include kind of the family at large?
Yeah. So, lots of our clients do come in where both spouses are involved in the financial picture and understanding. And we want to make sure that they are optimized for their own needs and their longevity of their assets. But also, many of them want to make sure that their families that are going to inherit the assets are also set up for success as well.
Yeah.
So there's three main things that I would think of there. Number one, we need to make sure that their beneficiaries are properly set up for their desires, and also to avoid probate. And then number two, structuring the assets strategically for distribution needs. And along with that, also setting them up so that if something were to happen, utilizing the bucket approach, we know that we have assets set aside for any short-term needs upon the passing of one of the clients without having to sell assets at the wrong time when the stock market's down.
I think to our mantra of avoid becoming a forced seller.
Exactly.
Right?
So, if you have like farmland, that could be a big one with estate planning. If we're not properly set up with proper tools, that could be a major hindrance on the longevity of those assets. And the last thing would be setting up the plan for legacy. So many of our clients also, we know that they're going to have assets that probably will get inherited by someone. We want to make sure that they are properly setting them up for within the estate plan for getting those assets properly to their kids and also potentially to charities that they want as well.
Right. You've got a plan, you know what it is, and then you're simply rolling through that plan.
Yeah. And an example would be if they've had that conversation together while they're both living, it's easier for their surviving spouse to feel comfortable with continuing that plan afterwards.
Let's go back and touch on distributions, kind of asset staging. In some ways, this feels like jargon, perhaps. So talk through why is asset staging? What is asset staging? And why is it important?
Yeah, so asset staging would be where are we going to take asset distributions from their portfolio. So you have clients that have pre-tax assets like within an IRA or 401k, along with taxable assets, Roth IRA assets. We at Vector want to help optimize strategies for distributions both now and also long term. If there's large deferred capital gains for a client, we may want to take extra from the IRA in that scenario and allow what will be a step up in cost basis upon the passing of the first spouse.
Why are we concerned with stepping up cost basis? What is cost basis?
Yeah, so example, Ezra, with cost basis, when an asset is sold, the gain on that asset is all taxable that year for capital gains. Many of our clients have along the way grown their portfolios enough, especially the last couple of years, where they have significant deferred capital gains, meaning they're not paying taxes yet, but as soon as they sell those assets, it will be capital gains taxed. So with the current tax law, when a person passes away, the assets they own get a step up in cost basis.
Yeah, for tax purposes, where that investment is. So if it was, they bought Apple stock or XYZ stock for, $1, goes up to $100 over their lifetime. When they pass it to their next generation, this might be their kids or their grandkids, that those kids are now realizing that new basis at $100.
Correct. Exactly. So in this scenario, that $99 of gains was never taxed by anyone.
Right.
Or right by the government for anyone.
Right.
And now that the new surviving spouse or kids can now sell that asset with no capital gains or very minimal capital gains.
Right. As compared to a strategy where you might do giving while you're alive, and then you are paying tax, or you're transferring that basis.
Correct.
To.
Yeah. An example there would be if we have clients that are charitably inclined, if they have that large deferred capital gain with a low cost basis stock, we will have conversations about actually gifting that stock instead of cash to a charity, because now the charity is not going to be paying taxes. So essentially you're getting rid of the tax anyway, and doing their charitable gifting that they want.
Yeah, a lot of this seems like it comes down to what are the goals and requirements and needs, and having those conversations, and then trying to figure out what are those best strategies.
Absolutely. We want to make sure that we understand the client's goals. That's a lot of the early part of the financial relationship, is having conversations about what is it that they want to do, what are their ultimate goals, and then that's where myself, the advanced planners in the relationship, have conversations on the back end to try and figure out what strategies we can implement to help them out.
What are maybe some next steps or things that they should be sure to do first if they haven't already?
Yeah, I'd say the number one step is make sure you have conversations with each other, the spouses, about what are the goals that you want to have, and making sure that the remaining spouse is set up for success. Along those lines, one main factor would be setting up beneficiaries properly. Another step would be making sure that you review your estate plan with your wills or trusts, power of attorney documents, so that if something happens to one of the spouses, either while they're living and they are incapacitated or upon passing away, that all the proper documents have been set up so that the assets transition properly as well.
So as a new client that's maybe onboarding and that is in this kind of preparing for surviving spouse financial planning, what are some of the steps, or maybe even what are some of the materials that they need to have ready?
Yeah, so everybody's a little different. So I have clients that come in that are spreadsheets with all their assets, all their expenses, clearly defined, and that's great. That we just utilize those. That helps us fully understand the relationships. Other clients maybe aren't quite as in depth on that decision making, and we'll ask for their statements, their tax returns, social security statements, pension statements, etc. That helps us get a full understanding of the situation as well. And then we utilize Sojourn to effectively show them on paper what is going on in their financial situation as well, to help them get more confidence in understanding about their financial goals and needs going forward. Yeah,
I love that. Yeah, just being able to have kind of all the puzzle pieces in one spot so you can make decisions.
Exactly. We're trying at Vector to be the chief financial officer for the relationship and let the clients be the chief executive officer.
Great. Well, thanks everyone who's watching and listening to this podcast. We appreciate it. We'll put some items in the show notes, so check out our blog for those. Like and subscribe, all that. And then until next time, thanks everybody for tuning in. Mike, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Ezra, as well.
Hey, thanks for listening to our podcast. Information presented is for educational purposes only and does not intend to make an offer or solicitation for the sale or purchase of any specific securities, investments, or investment